All right, welcome back. Unit 3 of English for Electrical Engineering. Our topic is how energy is produced, and we are going to have a look at conventional and alternative power sources. Just like in previous units, we are going to be looking at a couple of texts, and as a reading comprehension task, we will read the text and then answer some questions related to what we have read. Our first task is to read these texts about different types of power plants and match them with the pictures. Let's take a look at our first text here. So this one is about nuclear power plants. About 10% of the world's electric power is produced by nuclear power plants. Nuclear power requires little fuel and causes much less air pollution than other power plants. But it can cause severe health and environmental problems when accidents occur, with a consequent release of radioactive materials. This type of energy is produced by the splitting of atoms of uranium, which releases heat. This process, called fission, produces large amounts of steam, which is used to turn the blades of turbines, thus creating energy. The main problems with nuclear power are linked to the location of the power plants, as people are not willing to have these plants near their homes, and the disposal of waste material, which stays radioactive for centuries. All right, so nuclear power plants, which picture is it? A, B, or C? This is picture B. Right, two more here. The one, number 2 here is thermoelectric power plants. They provide about 2/3 of the world's electricity. These plants burn fossil fuels such as coal, oil, or natural gas, which are all non-renewable resources. This means that in the future there will be a limited supply of these resources. The main advantage of thermoelectric power plants is that they are reliable and can meet demand in peak periods. Electricity is generated by heating water in a boiler to create steam, which is then pressurized and used to turn the blades of giant turbines that produce electricity. These power plants cause environmental pollution because of the combustion of fossil fuels, which release carbon dioxide. All right, thermoelectric, this one was picture A, the one that you see right here. Okay, moving on to number 3, hydroelectric power plants. The energy produced by water can be captured and turned into electricity. The use of a dam on a river allows hydroelectric power plants to store water in an artificial lake or reservoir. When released, the force of the water spins the blades of giant turbines, which are connected to a generator producing energy. Hydropower is one of the most important renewable energy resources because it is reliable, efficient, and does not pollute the air. Although it has high initial costs, it is cheap to operate. Unfortunately, it has a great impact on the environment as humans, animals, and plants may lose their natural habitat. And then, surprise, surprise, the only option left for us is C, which was the correct image for hydroelectric power plants. All right. Now, we're not going to read the text again, but we've got a couple of true or false sentences to answer right here. You can take a screenshot of the previous slide and complete this task on your own, or if you are in the class with your workbooks, then you can do the same thing in the workbook and just use this presentation to check your answers. So the first one here is nuclear power plants do not produce air pollution at all. If you guessed false, you guessed it correctly. Accidents in nuclear power plants, for number 2, can have terrible consequences for the environment. This, of course, here is SA. This is true. Nuclear power plants produce biodegradable waste material. Biodegradable, that means that it can be broken down in nature on its own. Biodegradable, it degrades, biodegradable. Right, so this one is of course false, because one of the big issues of nuclear power plants is that the waste material will stay radioactive for centuries. So for hundreds of years, the waste material will be radioactive. Thermoelectric power is generated by the combustion of renewable resources. This again is false. And number 5, thermoelectric power plants are environmentally friendly. Also false. Dams are built on rivers to store water. That will be true. The water released from the reservoir flows through the generator. That one is false. And number 8, the only disadvantage of hydropower is its high initial cost. Well, there are other disadvantages as well, not only the high initial cost. Hence, the sentence number 8 will be false. All right, moving on. Now, we are going to be looking at different sources of energy, and then we will have to fill in a chart about it. Let's just read. I believe we will have 4 or 5 different texts right here. So solar energy is the first one. Sunlight can be directly converted into electricity by solar cells made of silicon. When light strikes the cells, a part of it is absorbed by the semiconductor material. The energy of the absorbed light knocks electrons loose, allowing them to flow freely and produce electricity. The process of converting light, photons, into electricity, voltage, is known as photovoltaic process, or PV for short. Solar cells are usually combined into panels and grouped into arrays. Even if the initial costs can be high, the PV system provides an independent, reliable electrical power source. It can produce energy for more than 15 years, and its routine maintenance is simple and cheap. Right, let's move on to wind energy. Wind energy is one of the cheapest renewable technologies available today. The wind turns the blades of giant turbines, producing in this way kinetic energy, which is then converted into mechanical power and electricity by a generator. The main disadvantage of wind energy is that there are few suitable wind sites where it is possible to have a constant production of electricity. So that was wind energy. Moving on to tidal energy. This alternative power source, which is typically used in coastal areas, turns the potential energy of tides into electricity. Tidal power generations use rising and falling tides in much the same manner as hydroelectric power plants. Large underwater turbines are placed in areas with high tidal movements and are designed to capture the kinetic energy of rising and falling tides. The turbines are driven by the power of the sea, both when the tide comes in and when it goes out. The problem with tidal power is that only massive increases in tides can produce energy, and there are very few places where this occurs. All right, geothermal energy is our next alternative source. So in the past, people used hot springs for bathing, cooking, and heating. Geothermal energy is based on the fact that the earth is hotter below the surface. The hot water, which is stored in the earth, can be brought to the surface and used to drive turbines to produce electricity, or it can be piped through houses as heat. This energy is cheap and has a low impact on the environment, but there are few sites where it can be extracted at a low cost. And last but not least, we've got biomass energy. So biomass is a renewable energy source derived from plant material and animal waste. When it is burnt, it releases its chemical energy as heat. Biomass fuels include forest residues such as dead trees, branches, and tree stumps, straw, manure, and even municipal solid waste. Biomass energy is a natural process, so it is carbon neutral and has low initial costs. It used to be the main source of heating at home in the past, and it continues to be highly exploited in the developing world. The main disadvantage of biomass is that it has a smaller potential than other energy sources and requires excellent maintenance skills. Right. Now, if you are in the class now and right, if you are in the class now, just use this chart here to check your answers, okay? So this is a chart that you had to fill in about how it works, advantages and disadvantages, okay? Leave that up there for a second and we will move on to our next text right here. So once again, you can pause the video and read it for yourselves, or you can turn it into a listening task and just listen to what is being read. Read the text about the electrical distribution system and complete it with the words in the box. Then listen and check. So if you want, choose the words to fill in the gaps and we will check. So electricity distribution is the final stage in the delivery of electricity to end users. To be able to use electric power for our daily activities, electricity must be transmitted from the power plants to other areas where it can be distributed to different consumers. The electricity generated by power plants is increased or stepped up at substations and distributed through high voltage transmission lines to minimize energy losses and to economize on the material need for conductors. Transmission lines use voltages as high as 765,000 volts and they are usually connected in a network. This means that if a station receives an unexpected demand for electric power, it can call on the other stations to help to meet the demand. The electrical power is converted from high voltage to lower voltages thanks to the step-down transformers, which turn electricity into different power levels. Once it is set Once it is sent to your neighborhood, another small transformer mounted on a pole converts the power to even lower levels to be used at home. The final voltage is between 110 volts for lights, TVs, and other smaller appliances, and 240 volts for larger appliances. Right, then, this was an illustration of the distribution system, okay? And what we will have to do is match the numbers with the picture. So here on the next slide, we have got these sentences which should be matched with the picture. Now here, you can of course go back and forth between these two slides. Again, if you have the worksheet there with you, then you can check and answer the questions and use this presentation only for checking your answers. So let's see what we've got here. Transmission lines carry high voltage electricity to different substations. That was number 3. Electricity leaves the power plant, number 1. Electricity is stepped down to transformers will be number 4. Current at lower voltages is transmitted to homes and offices will be number 6. And the voltage is increased at a step-up station, number 2. Power levels are lowered will be number 5. So electricity leaves the power plant, number 1. Number 2 is the voltage is increased at a step-up station. Number 3, transmission lines carry high voltage electricity. Number 4, electricity is stepped down by transformers. 5, power levels lowered. by small transformers. 6. Current at lower voltages is transmitted to homes and offices. Right. And I believe this will be our last task before our quiz. Read the text again. We're not going to do that. Or you can, of course, you can go back, or if you've taken a screenshot, you can go back and check. What we'll have to do is match the sentence with its ending. Power plants generate power and distribute it to substations. So number 1 is D. Transmission lines are used to distribute high voltage electricity to a network of substations. High voltages mean in case of an expected demand for electric power, a reduction in energy losses during transmission. Step-down transformers convert electricity from high voltage levels to lower levels. Substations can help each other in case of an expected demand for electric power. Shouldn't it be unexpected demand? In case of an unexpected demand. The current transmitted by poles, only one option left, can be safely used in businesses and homes. This was our last reading text. And now it is quiz time. Let's have a look at a couple of quiz questions to check and to make sure that you have understand everything in this unit. So, first question here. What do we call the energy that is produced by the heat inside the earth? Wind, volcano, geothermal, or tidal? Hopefully you are all shouting. Asfar, you are shouting geothermal energy, which is the correct answer. Number 3, geothermal. Power obtained by harnessing the energy of the sun's rays. The rays of the sun. What kind of energy is that? Hydrogen cells, solar, or geothermic? Nuclear is also an option. Correct answer is solar. Of course, the picture will definitely help you. Of course, you can see the solar panels right here. Next, these generate electricity using power of the water, fossil fuel, wind, or sun. These kind of turbines are called wind turbines, and of course, they will use the power of the wind. Next up, we've got heat energy generated and stored in the earth. Very similar to one of our previous questions here. Hydrogen cells, nuclear, solar, or geothermal. If it is in the earth, it is geo, and of course it's related to heat, so that is thermal. That's how the word comes together. Geothermal, earth and heat or temperature. Geothermal is the correct answer here. We can use motion of the ocean to create electricity. What is this called? Geothermal, fossil, tidal, or wind? Power of the ocean, high tide, low tide, tidal power is the correct answer right here. Next, renewable resources are things that we can. So what does it mean when you say something is renewable? Does it mean we can use it over and over again, or use it only once, or dig it up from the ground, or something that simply burns? Renewable means can be used over and over again. Solar energy uses solar panels to capture energy from the sun and turn it into fuel, electricity, sound, or coal. That was an easy one towards the end. Electricity is the correct answer, of course. And we don't need a redemption question because hopefully you've answered everything correctly right here. Right. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or ask me in the classroom. That was the extra material for our Unit 3. For anybody who missed the unit in the class, or anybody who wants to check the answers in the workbook, or anybody who is interested in the topic. Thank you for the attention. Have a lovely day, everyone, and I'll see you again in the next one. Goodbye. Goodbye.